Yes, you've read correctly. Having a chatbot is now illegal unless you do what I'm going to tell you in this video. You see, about a year ago, the European Union has passed down a law requiring that as of the date of the 28th of June 2025, a new law will be in place throughout the entirety of Europe, or the entirety of all countries that are within the EU, and this law affects anyone who wants to offer services or who wants to be accessible over the internet within Europe. So if you want people from Europe to access your website, and if you have a chatbot, then this video is for you. And you see, what this law is about is it is about the accessibility. It is called the EAA, the EU Accessibility Act, meaning that everyone who has a website or anything online that can be accessed over the internet and is offering this within Europe, or wants someone in Europe to be able to access this page, they need to meet certain requirements for accessibility. So people that are blind or almost blind, or in any other way restricted in their ability to see or freely move across the internet. And what this law is saying exactly is that any website or chatbot in specific needs to be able to be read by a screen reader. That means that every text needs to be able to be read out by a screen reader. Every button needs to be explained and read out by a screen reader. So if you have a chatbot, then this icon of the chatbot must have an alternative text that can be read out by the screen reader to say open chatbot or anything like that. Any button on your website, any image, and anything where you can interact with needs to be able to be read out by a screen reader, and so the texts and everything you have on there as well. Further, this law says that the contrast, so the colors you have on your website or in the chatbot, needs to be easily able to differentiate just with the human eye. So you can't put yellow text on an orange background, for example. That contrast wouldn't be high enough so that everyone is able to clearly see it. The best contrast possible, of course, is black on white. In order to find out if your website or your chatbot, if you're using one, has the right contrast or has a good contrast that is acceptable, there is multiple links out there. I believe you can just Google contrast checking or EAA contrast, anything like that. I'm certain you will find something to check the contrast on your website and within your chatbot. And as well, your chatbot or entire website needs to have the ability to only be used with a keyboard. So just without a mouse, without using a mouse, just with clicking keys on the keyboard, your entire website needs to be accessible. Every button, every link, every little thing on your website needs to be accessible with just clicking and a screen reader. And then, of course, the contrast. And as well, this law states that every text that is written on your website or written by a chatbot needs to be easily understood and easily readable. There is no allowance to really long sentences or really hard to understand sentences. Everything needs to be clearly formulated and easily understood. So, summing up all of this, after tomorrow, if your website isn't easily accessible and easily readable and easily understandable when it comes to the text and your chatbot as well, it doesn't have alternative texts for all the images and buttons explaining what is seen in the image or what a button does, and it isn't capable of being read out by a screen reader, and it doesn't have the right contrast, then your website is illegal and you can be sued to pay massive amounts of money for breaking this law. So better watch out for that. Now, how do you do that? For the contrast part, I already told you can just Google and play around with the colors of your website or your chatbot until it fits the right criteria. The next thing with easily understandable texts, I believe everyone has that already. You shouldn't worry too much about that. If you feel like any text may be written too hard to understand or the sentence is too long, you should shorten that anyways, just to make your users in general the comfort of being easily able to read your text and understand what you mean. And then it needs to be accessible by a screen reader. You can just test that by downloading screen readers. JAWS is a name of one. I believe NVIDIA has a screen reader as well. You can just download these. They're completely free in most of the cases. And you can just click through a website and see if the screen reader is able to read out anything and to read out everything correctly. This can be really challenging for chatbots because not every chatbot software out there, or not every software that you can build a chatbot with for your website, has these abilities automatically. And I won't recommend you one specifically because every single software that I've found was not able to fit all of these criteria in total. There is workarounds, there is really complex ways around that, but I just want to ask you, make sure that if you have a chatbot, and I'm all for having a chatbot, I love chatbots, totally, but make sure that when you have a chatbot on your website, that it meets all of these criteria, that chats and chat messages can be read out by the screen reader. If your chatbot itself reads out the text, that doesn't count. It needs to be read out by a screen reader. And as well, every button within the chatbot, opening the chatbot, closing the chatbot, navigating through the chatbot, all of that must be able, all these buttons must have an alternative text telling the user what the button does, and thus the screen reader needs to be able to read out what these buttons do. Be careful, because as of tomorrow, the 28th of June 2025, these laws apply, and if you don't abide by these rules, then you can get sued and pay massive amounts of money. You don't want that, I have warned you, so be careful. Double check and everything will be fine. Okay. That was it for today. You can go ahead and watch this video right now. I'll see you over there, and until then, goodbye.